Hello, 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 and welcome to season 5 of the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. It is 2025. And whether you subscribe to the idea of January 1st is New Year, New You, or you're hanging around till Lunar New Year at the end of the month to be your true time to leap into 2025, I am here with the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast, ready to give you some outstanding conversations anywhere on the realm of spiritual to science and in between, and really serving up some conversations that are from outstanding people doing wonderful things in the world. And you are guaranteed to get something out of every conversation. I am planned out for the next couple months, and I don't know who's more excited, my listener or me, about who is coming on the podcast. So today, on episode 1 of season 5, I am joined by Tina Bakehouse. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Tina because I love getting a flavor of my guests for you before we start our conversation. Tina B provides holistic communication consulting and coaching to help heart-centered leaders and organizations internationally and nationally to communicate more effectively. Tina B is the author of the book, Discovering Our Magnetic Speaker Within, which highlights stories and strategies for leaders to be magnetic in any context. I love this. And I'm going to tell you guys, spoiler alert, before you listen to this entire episode, Tina has been so kind and gracious to give us a free chapter from her book. So without any further ado, Tina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I mean, we literally logged on for this conversation and like hopped back into our conversation from a couple months ago before we even planned this episode. Cool things about Tina and I, we have the same birthday. And we both are holding out on taking our magnesium
Yes.
because we want to be alert and engaged in our conversation. I just think that is, and we both are like, I got to keep it nearby because I don't want to forget to take my magnesium and be laying in bed later wondering why I can't fall asleep.
Right on. Yes.
Oh, I'm sure, listener, you're relating to this and thinking to yourself, oh, whatever time of day I'm listening to this, I got to put my magnesium aside, make sure to take it before bedtime. So
Absolutely. It's crucial.
it is crucial. And you know what? I think it's so important for us to do whatever we need to do to be in our most vital and energized state, which is perfect for our conversation about magnetic speaking. So I want to start with the question for you, Tina. What does it mean to be magnetic?
Yeah, I love the word magnetic. I discovered this a year or more ago when I was little and I learned that two objects could connect together. I just was fascinated by that science. And so magnetic to me, when it comes in the context of speaking, is it's this idea of connecting first with yourself, then you can connect with the other with your words, your voice, your body, your overall essence to make that impact you desire. And so it's first awareness of where's your mind, where's your body, where's your heart, and having that coherence so that you can be centered, so that you can meet the other where they are to then attract them, just like, the two objects that have that magnetic connection.
I love that. And I honestly, I can feel that. It's such a good description of how those magnets go together. And those moments where you feel like you cannot help but read somebody's post, click on their link, buy their book, buy into their course because you're like, I need to get myself into their space.
Yes. And there is a draw, right, of why we make those decisions. And I really believe that from a communication standpoint, we have, our audience has two choices. They can choose to either tune you out or choose to listen. And that's why all communication is persuasive. So how you be is essential.
Hmm. Oh my gosh, I feel like we could say that 3 times and just solidify it, that how you are being is so essential, because
Mhm.
it's the difference between somebody tuning in and attuning to what you're saying, and or saying scroll, swipe, somebody different. Wow.
Absolutely. And it's in a split moment, right? I think the moment we met, I just was immediately like, delight, this is delight. That there was that engaged, not only nonverbal cue that you were with me. And that's the big thing is, are you getting that other person's attention? I don't know if people have ever been in a networking situation where the person's talking at you and it becomes almost like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 and you want to move on to the next. With you, it was very different. It was like, oh, I could be on this call forever. It just felt like home and comfort and excitement all wrapped into one and very natural.
Total ditto. And I don't know about you, but when I find somebody who has a little bit of wonder about them, like this could be an amazing day and I'm so excited for what's around the corner. It's like, yeah, I want to be with those people. I want to experience things in a state of wonder, even if it's something I've done before. To experience something in that state of wonder makes such a big difference.
I love that. And it's being in that childlike space of, like you say, having that depth of curiosity and to ask questions. And I think about that all the time of how can I tap into that 12-year-old self, that playful parallel play of how do I make this meal, this experience, this conversation playful, and be curious and be interested in the other and ask them those questions and really, really listen and be with them.
Yeah. I think that's a trick, being able to get into the present moment. So you're really able to hear and to see. For me, like being able to be present for someone so that they can be both seen and heard. And even if you don't completely understand them, there's the intent to build understanding. I mean, that's
Yes.
such a core essential piece of communication.
Yes, building understanding. And I would even say, comprehension, right? How can we comprehend the other person? Because all they want is to be seen and heard. And if we can take what they're giving us, like the subtext and all the things, it's sort of, in my experience of doing improvisation, it's the whole pyramid that Robert Poynton talks about, the yes and pyramid, which is letting go. So it's letting go of any preconceived notions, noticing more. What do you see? What are you taking in? And use everything. Have you had a conversation with this person before? Or what is it that they're not saying? What's their tone of voice or paralanguage sharing with you? Or their facial expressions or body language in general?
Yeah, I love that. I often think, like, how much fun would it be to take an improv class with like your coworkers, your family, like the people you have dynamics with, and see what you can accomplish in that time. When I was in college, I took a lot of theater classes, one of my favorite things, and was able to take an improv class. And I feel like by the end of the improv class, I gained so much connection with the people that were in it. I think both because you do spend so much time with each other and really connecting and seeking to understand the other and attune to them. And I think also because it's so fun and so playful,
Mhm.
to be in that space and to not know what's coming up.
Absolutely. I think that that's what is the delight for me in improv. And it is an adult playground where it's the not knowing, it's the letting go, it's the uncertainty. And it gives that permission that it's like Tina Fey says, there's no mistakes, just opportunities. And when I've taken these classes or engaged in performances, and you literally just get a word or a phrase or a setting suggestion from your audience, and then you create a 20-minute show from that simple word through monologues or painting the scene, and then engaging with other players, there is something so rewarding, so satisfying when you get that laugh, or when you do a callback to something where you really make bold decisions and they go well, or when you make bold decisions and they don't, and you don't fail because your fellow partner makes you look good. And what a beautiful way to co-create is if we go into the world, I think, as communicators, as effective, heart-centered, engaged, magnetic communicators, we'll want to make the other person look good in whatever context we are in, whether it's interpersonally with our family, which agree, improv with family and friends, that would definitely, I think, give us some inner knowing about dynamics of how things are going, maybe scary dynamics, but also
Maybe
interest
scary.
and intrigue. And then it's just it's being in that allowance, allowing and taking away the efforting and the expectation of how the conversation is to go. And I think that that's what improv has really gifted me, is to teach me to be in my body more, to be more fully present, to let go, to truly notice more of what's around me, and to use everything, like all my skills and gifts and talents, and encourage that of others.
Amazing. I love that so much. And I think it's what really makes you stand out, when you are available to do that for other people, particularly for people who are using their communication skills in a leadership position, leading a group, leading a team. When you're able to do that, you're able to see some of the pieces of what's going on with your team and support them better.
Absolutely. I think that that's being a true leader, is to see the other and the gaps that, if you see a gift in someone, you foster that, you encourage that. If you see a gap, you also foster a means of how you learn to fill in that gap, and you stretch them in a gentle, kind way, and provide feedback, corrective feedback that is helping, not harming. That I feel the best leaders that I've worked with in as an intuitive communication coach, or as a team member in various companies prior to working for myself, the best moments have been those where they saw, and maybe where I was missing parts and pieces of me, but they saw in me, and then they encouraged those gifts, and asked the questions, and were truly, truly supportive, wanting me to be the best leader I could be, even if it's different than they are. I'm much more diplomatic, and someone else could be a lot more into logistics or tactical or strategic.
Yeah. So that sounds like too, it's really sort of looking at leadership as more reflective of your particular strengths versus having like a cut and paste model for what a leader should look like.
Right. And I think the best gift we can do when we lead people is match talent to task. David Kiersey talks about that, who's a social psychologist, when he looks at temperament, is that when you see, oh, this person is really great at piecing things together and making sure we have all the lists and the details, okay, I'm going to let them do that. That's definitely not me. I'm a creative, and I can be strategic for sure, but logistics are not my gift. And so I have to work harder at that.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I've seen people in that role and they're fostered that, it really, that's when the magic happens, when they get to do what they're called, what their wheel of genius is.
Mm. So how do we do that better? Like what is the approach that really allows us to do that as leaders in organizations, in teams, for ourselves as business owners who have just like a few people that work with us? What's the trick to that? Where do we start?
I think very quickly, a lot of organizations are quick to say, well, there's got to be a test for that. Well, yes, we have lots of tools. We have Gallup's Strengths, Finder. We have Emergenetics, Myers-Briggs, Kiersey Temperament, so many of these. And yes, they give us languaging and ways of categories to talk about okay, these are the gaps, this is this person's strength, etc. I really believe it's observing more and listening more.
Mm,
Watch,
mm,
listen, pause. When unclear, ask those questions. And I think if we come in as a scientist with data collecting, it really, and then get into both the quantitative and qualitative research, like get the story. What are the stories that your people are telling themselves? Because I think a lot of times as human beings, we can create stories in our minds, not only of how we see ourselves within an organization, how we see the organization as a whole, and then how we talk about it outside of the organization. And so are we all on the same page of how we see the self, the organization, and the way in which we communicate it? And so I think if we listen and observe more and then ask those follow-up questions, that's going to fill a lot of those gaps and connect people at a much deeper level. So it's emotional intelligence with communication intelligence. They are very good marriage, communication and
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking too, sometimes where organizations may go wrong is thinking that taking that time takes away from the bottom line and the mobility, getting everybody going forward. But the investment in that, I mean, really having those facts and figures and data, whether, like you said, it could be specific data on people's personalities, or it's observing how they function as a team, or when you say to your team, like for example, I'll say like on my team, my director will say, we're looking for somebody to give a presentation. I'm like, it's me. And everybody knows if you need a presentation, Kelly wants to do it. So have her do it or have her team up with somebody to do it because she likes doing presentations. Whereas there are other people who are like, please don't make me get up in front of a group of people. But like you said, I would love to, take all the information and help create the slides, or, there's some other piece that is more affirming. And I love that. And I love those opportunities because I feel like it makes a job that could be very similar, more authentic to your own strengths and interests.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you, Kelly. And I think how awesome that you have, it sounds like an organization that sees in you that light and they listen to you when you say, hey, me, and they give you that grace and that opportunity. And I find too many times going back to what you were saying earlier of, the rushing through. We're human beings, not human doers. And when we become rush into that go, do kind of energy, it comes off as edgy and brittle, and you're not going to move the needle forward as an organization. Definitely not persuasive. Nobody really wants to work with someone who's like, so strained and pushing. We tend to should all over ourselves. And
Mm,
and I've seen this when for nearly 2 decades, I worked in education. The best things happen when we took our time, when we said, okay, we've got this new thing we're doing, a new trend in education. Instead of rushing it through, let's chip away, do some testing, do some conversations, get some feedback from teachers, then test it in your classroom before we say, now this is it. As opposed to, okay, we got to push it through. And so I've seen both sides. The rushing just simply doesn't work. Slow productivity is Cal Newport. He is big into the world of deep work, and that you need spaciousness to think, to get those creative juices flowing and the problem solving, and you can be more productive. The rest is best. And
mm,
that's not just from a take a beat and a breath as an organization and team, but also for yourself. As an entrepreneur who works for herself, I've been working on this, like spaciousness in my day, rest. I
mm.
communicate more effectively. I'm much more creative and more influential with gaining new clients, and we're working with my clients.
I love that. I totally agree. I think rest is actually a superpower. That's
It
my
is.
feeling on it. One, because you give your nervous system a chance to balance. And you get to kind of check back in with your body. You get so into your head, which I know I can do, that you're like, oh my gosh, what signals have I been ignoring this whole time? Do I have
Right.
to pee? Did I eat anything? Have I drank any water yet today? And also just reconnect with purpose and a sense of like, what the heck am I doing all of this for? I feel, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, I don't really want to do things that don't feel important to me in the sense of making the world a better place. If it's
Right.
not really making the world a better place, I mean, obviously you have to pay bills. Does it make the world a
Right.
better
Right.
place?
Right.
I don't know, but I do like to, keep my home and such. But
There's
the
that.
thing, the commitments, the time commitments, the people I'm spending my time with, I was sharing with you, I went on a family vacation, like to stop everything else and spend a week with my family is like absolutely worth it. And coming back from that break mentally, physically, the joy that just comes from all being together, my ability to come back to whatever work looks like is I'm in such a better space.
Oh, agree. And I think too, because you allowed yourself that spaciousness, that break, that play time, you probably had more vivacious energy to spring forward instead of push through, push through, push through. And I just feel like that's for all things, right? If it doesn't feel right or feel good, I think about, am I doing this or saying this because it's making other people feel comfortable and pleasing other people, or is it for myself? And so you can't be influential unless you don't know what you desire first to show up to that conversation, to show up to that presentation. Like to your point, every speech, every communication needs to have a clear purpose, a
Mm.
specific purpose. And if you walk into there fumbling along or not having clear desire, that's going to show up and the other person's going to be confused or mirror. And I remember very distinctively that first couple times of as the pandemic opened up, I started my own business, had my own business card. It had my name on it, my business, not Creighton University as a professor, not a nonprofit, not a for-profit organization, but mine. And I was coming off like really a heavy cologne, trying too hard, just nervous energy. And it was like, whoa, back at the truck. Just show up as with your heart and just be in a space and people feel that. And I think if we can show up as the who that we are, center ourselves, the magnetism happens. You don't chase, you attract.
Mm-hmm.
That comes centered in the self.
Oh my gosh. As you were saying that, I was literally thinking in my mind of like, we talked about like the magnets, you get them close, but like the magnets that are opposites. And no matter what you do, there's always this repulsion that's happening. So it's literally
Yes.
the opposite. Yeah. That was beautiful. It just kind of made me laugh to think about that and how often we do that,
Mhm.
unintentionally. Maybe it's that sense of like the scarcity mindset of I need to get people into my business. I need this to happen. And that energy of lack and I don't already have it makes us kind of go into a state where the other person is not making a connection with us. And
A
that's
state of
tough,
it.
a state of
Yeah.
ick. And it's so tough because you're like, well, of course I want business. I want to do the things I'm doing and I want to have success with it. But do you have any pointers for people how they kind of come out of that state of almost desperation sometimes, like I've just got to make this happen? How do you show up in those conversations and be more in that state of magnetism versus repulsion, even though the bottom line is I need to get people to sign on, to be my client, to come work with me, to buy my programs.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's that forefront energy, right? If you have the forefront, I got to make money, gotta, 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 gotta. then that's how you're going to look, sound, and feel, and they're going to mirror that desperation. It's sort of, I would say, similar to if you're going on a first date, when someone comes at the door and they put on way too much cologne, it's a distraction, it detracts. And so I would say for my part, it's really getting centered on what brings you joy, what is it that gets you excited, and having that firm knowing, that trust of who you are. Like, I know I'm very passionate about what I do. I know I am a powerfully influential woman. I know that I'm very creative and that I do have this gift of intuition where I can see draw out this magnetic light and yumminess that people can stand in their power, stand in their truth on any stage. And so when you have that clarity of your gifts and you see yourself as a gift, then that will ground you. I think it's grounding yourself and doing what intuitive Abraham Hicks talks about, which is segment intention. And that is, there's nothing great that I did at the beginning of my business as far as trying to pummel as many meetings as I could, like back to back to back to back. I got to talk to a lot of people, do like 8 meetings in a row. And I learned quickly that that is not fair to the other person, particularly persons number 6, 7, and 8, because you're exhausted, you're fried, and it's not fair to yourself. And so it's setting spaciousness, knowing your energetic field. Everybody has a different energy threshold. So knowing what tasks during the day bring me and fuel joy in my world. We know magnesium calms us down. We need that calming energy. We also need to know what times of day we're most jazzy. Mornings are my time. It's my yummy, happy, creative space. So I do my harder work in the morning, where when I say that, like the more cognition, it requires a little more efforting. I also am very strategic with my time, like my Mondays are my vision time, my writing time, etc. And so time blocking and creating flow. I know that when I do a keynote, it's very taxing on me because I feel all that energy. So the day before and the day after, I really allow a block of time to prep and to be with myself and have quiet, and then the following to rest and to get, rejuvenated. So if you can ask yourself, first of all, what influences my energy in a beautiful way? And some people, keynotes jazz them up. They're like, yes, take me out for dinner afterwards. I'll talk your ear off. Know that about yourself and allow those dinners to happen and make that happen. It's advocating for your energy, being aware of it, advocating for it, taking care of it, and then grounding yourself before every communication. Because if you rush to the next one, you're again going to come off very, very much desperation. And again, that harms like you say, it distracts and it detracts rather than magnetizes.
Oh my gosh, there's so many beautiful gems in there. I love how you talked about really honoring what works for you at what time and really setting the intention of using your time wisely. So, Monday's visioning, making sure that if you're having a really big speaking engagement and it's going to take your energy, that you've got time on either side of it that's going to be energizing for you. And I love that you brought in joy, that really following what lights you up really helps you. Now, I know you're into human design, correct?
Yes, yes.
So are you a generator? Am I right in saying, are you a manifesting
I am
generator?
an emotional projector.
You're an emotional projector.
So that has been a big life-changing awareness for me, from not only a professional level for my business, but also from a personal level. So a professional level, I'm to be the lighthouse and people are to be drawn to me. It feels icky to cold call, to do marketing. I'm not meant to do it. I'm just meant to put my yummy stuff out there and share and teach, which feels really good, to be the guiding light and to share those great nuggets of information. So teaching instructional little quick snippet videos, I've posted some on YouTube. I've kind of taken a hiatus on that, or writing a book and then sharing stories and strategies strategies of how to have that magnetic mind, message, and mechanics. And then when I'm in conversation, just being very interested and asking thoughtful questions and waiting for the invitation has been huge, 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 huge. And then also know that my decision making is very emotional, and to not be making big financial or big decisions when I'm high or super low, that I need to really, the waiting period is really, really crucial and important for me. From a personal level, I mean, I have a splenic projector for a son,
Hmm.
and a best friend partner who is a manifesting generator.
Mm-hmm.
So also rest. I rest best in a room by myself,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, and just taking those steps. And I am not meant to work a 40+ hour work week. So when I got burnout, which I was doing 80+ hours a week for nearly 2 years for the book, for my business, it took me to a whole new level of brittle and insanity and burnout. And so I'm just now coming to the end of like this big healing journey, this health, self-care. And I know we've been hearing lots and lots of self-care, but there is big truth in that. You know, I pushed through a lot of things, a lot of big presentations, a lot of workshops, a lot of things. And now I'm on the other side and going, ah, a breath and a beat. So knowing your human design, I feel like makes you the most naturally magnetic with how you communicate and how you do and be in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not meant to do like, I'm around a lot of generators that are pumping out those awesome marketing messages, posting every day on social media. That is not natural to me. It doesn't feel right or true. And that's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
giving ourselves the freedom to choose. We get to choose how, like when you run your business, how does that look and sound and feel that's authentic and true to me? How
Yeah.
do you present a TED Talk or a keynote? I guide you there. And I bring out that yummy flair that you provide to then ignite the talk in a way that's so beautiful that the light just shines out, whether you're a generator or a projector or whatever that may be.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I'm an emotional manifesting generator.
Ah,
So I completely relate to the waiting because I realized that a lot of my burnout over the years has been a direct result of saying yes to things at the high state of my emotional wave.
as opposed to it going with your gut, which generators are meant to go with their gut.
Yeah. So like I'd be like, sure, yeah, totally. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like actually going through with it, I'm like, I don't want to.
And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like one of Drew Tarvin, who's this engineer. He said to me, "You're as much what you say no to as what you say yes to," and that
Yeah.
has stuck with me. That no is not a rejection; it's a limitation. And so I think the pause, there is such power in that, not just from a decision making standpoint. Pause, make the decision, then make the choice, right? And that goes with communication. If you're going to have a crucial conversation with your superior to get a new, like a new position within the company or a pay raise, or you want to give your 2 weeks notice, those are crucial conversations, or a performance review, or it's, the pause in a formal presentation where you allow your audience that opportunity to chew on what you said, to let it marinate and sink and give emphasis for what you said, because we tend to rush through, and we want them to catch up and to get the
Yeah.
full on like orchestra of this thing we call the voice, that it has such power when we allow different tones and different timbres and ways of being with our voice.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I think that's one of my favorite things about speaking to an audience is speaking to an audience, and
Mm-hmm.
that you can give the same presentation, the same talk to a different audience, and it's not the same. If
In fact, it
you're
shouldn't be the
connected,
same.
it shouldn't be the same, especially if you're trying to be connected. I, in particular, like to do more of the presentation style where you're teaching something, you're informing your audience and helping
Yes.
them improve upon what they're already doing, and gain a sense with the back and forth of, is what I'm speaking about landing? Is it making sense for them? do I need to pivot? I actually had this experience last winter. I did a presentation with one of my coworkers, and we gave the same presentation to 3 different groups in one day. And I learned a few things. I learned
Wowza.
number one, I'm never doing that again.
That's exhausting.
Exhausting. So even as a manifesting generator, like it took a lot of additional reserves for me to get
Wow.
through it. Two, I learned how to de-escalate an angry audience, which
Oh,
I
wow.
really hadn't had a lot. I mean, they weren't like, throwing out the pitchforks or anything, but they were definitely not happy about being there or about other things that were pulling in those other things. And how to handle a heckler, which
That's
wasn't
huge.
wasn't so much heckling us. It was kind of usurping the conversation for what they wanted to talk about. And I really slowed down in the moment to think about, okay, in this moment, there are so many different ways I can go about this. I can become the authority that tells you, like, you can't do that. You're not welcome to have your opinion. And I had to think very hard about how to create some like boundaries instantly. And I was also sort of thinking, I don't want to have this person leave this feeling unheard or
Mhm.
feeling like I continue to victimize them in some way by saying, like, you can't talk right now. So what I ended up doing is saying, I hear and understand what you're saying. The concerns that you have aren't relevant to our conversation right now. And they said, can we talk about it at the end of the presentation? I said, I would love to be able to do that, but we've got a jam-packed presentation, and I feel really responsible to get through all of this content for everybody in the room right now. After this, we have a little break, and I'm happy to have a sidebar conversation with you if you feel like you need more after we get through the rest of the content. And it turned
Yes.
out fine. She actually didn't come back to me, didn't want anything
Yeah.
more, but I felt as a speaker that responsibility to have everybody leave with like their well-being intact, whether or not they had intent to derail the presentation.
Right. It was your responsibility to not just make that person feel comfortable and heard, but also the entire audience. And so I think you did a great job of empowering yourself and them and everyone to, I hear you, I see you, and here's an option to continue this conversation at a better, more appropriate time, which that allowed your audience members to breathe, because you don't want to get into that dance of like you say, the derail, where it becomes about that one individual and not about the greater whole. That's where the sum of the parts, it's really important to say, okay, there's 50 other people in this room or 20 other people or whatever, and we need to move the needle forward. And so, wow, what a great learning opportunity. And to know that, 3 presentations in a day, that is rigor. And I mean, it makes me think of when I did teach high school before I taught college, and you had 8 periods in a day, one study hall to kind of, study, do your lesson print. But I know I don't think I could go back to that. It was like boom, de boom, de boom. So I have a big appreciation for high school, junior high teachers that
My gosh,
do that
yeah.
energy for 9 months or more a year and find it, find that reservoir. I think again, it goes back to being present and trusting your intuition. I mean, I feel like all of us have that beautiful sixth sense, and you were in your body and you're like, okay, this isn't feeling good. So you aligned your gut reaction with your heart, and then your mind, all of it was, very coherent. So then when you do, I feel like when we trust our intuition and trust the moment, the dance of conversation happens. It's when we start to go and question that it becomes staccato, or it gets weird, because to me, because you had the intention of the greatest good for that individual, that heckler, and the audience, then your body and your heart and your words just took over. And I think that that's what I found with my clients more so than any ever, is no matter what the context, if you can really say, okay, context leads to content. So target audience, situation, what time of day, all of these things matter in the content in which we craft our messaging and deliver it. So if you are in a space that, yeah, you are right before lunch, you got to be aware people are probably starting to think lunch thoughts, hunger. If the room is too hot, the temperature matters. If like the one audience was a little upset about being there, they were a mandatory like audience, it was not voluntary. That's a very different energy. And so acknowledging that, like when I used to work at an organization and their trainers were required to go through an 8-hour training day of how to be a powerful presenter with persuasive communication at high level risk communications. They came in all like huffing and buffing at 8 a.m. And so I made a joke and said, you know what, how can we have fun together for this next 8 hours? What would add value? Because I'm aware that you are told you get to take this. So why not we have this experience together to be pleasurable? So what are some key component objectives that you want to hit on that would add value to where you are as a supervisor leader in your field? And that softened the room, like first to make them laugh, to draw attention to what is the elephant, if you will, in the room. And then to say, guess what? Yes, we have this plan, but I'm not your typical trainer. I'm not going to read a script. I have it here and I have the PowerPoint slides and I'm going to make it what you need it to be. We'll spend more time where we need to spend more time as long as you are getting fed what you need fed.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, it feels like such a more dynamic experience for everyone involved, and certainly keeps you in that state of being lit up and excited about it.
Yes.
Rather
like
than
variety.
feeling
Yes.
tethered to the PowerPoint.
Oh my gosh. Yes. You bring up death by PowerPoint. I mean, I think too many people use it as a crutch. It's this, I mean, I've done 2 TED Talks and neither of which I used PowerPoint. I used either props or just really engaged body language and storytelling. And, my talks didn't lend themselves to really needing slide deck. And even TED is like less is more, right? Mm-hmm. They'd rather have you have 0 slides and be a dynamic speaker who's sharing from the heart than tons of cool slides that overcome and overwhelm, because really they're to support. You are the star as the speaker, and then the visuals need to support. And ask yourself, does this presentation need this in this moment? What is the expectation of the audience?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that so much. What was your experience like doing the TED Talks?
Well, they were vastly different. The first one was, I was really, really nervous because it was my first one and it was about a new experience together. It was focused on ag arts, how we can use art to draw and educate people into eating healthier foods. So I had collaborated with a variety of artists and farmers to do ag arts camps with families and Ronald McDonald House to really, teach them soil health and ways of eating food that grows in healthy, rich soil rather than processed foods. And so it was a very creative project. The second one, that just happened March of 2024. And it was hard because I had a couple of sexual assaults at this very university. And actually that popped up that week before. And then my body was really, really reacting to it, like getting eye secretion, red body, whatever. And so when I stood on that red dot, I went into trauma and I completed it and I did it and I didn't know what I said. And so people said, wow, you did an amazing job. And so they were 2 vastly different experiences. And I'm grateful because I can celebrate that I did it. Mm-hmm. And ironically, it was about storytelling, how to tell your story. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a big story. That what a learned opportunity to your body keeps the score and to return to a place 30 years later where you were college freshmen and get to talk to other college students about the power of story.
Wow.
So those were 2 vastly different. And I know that there's another TED Talk, I think, inside of me because I'm like, I want to stand on that red dot and be very much grounded and in my power and have it be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
that the others were not fun. I mean, the ag arts was definitely fun. I was terrified because it was my first one. The second one was hard and a growth moment. And I think they were both in my chapter of this thing we call life and speaking experience to say, hey, I've got strategies. I did the hardest thing in my entire life. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
did it. I couldn't get through rehearsal very well without clunking it up, but I got through the rehearsal and I did it.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
do you feel like from the experience, it was healing some of the trauma that you experienced?
Absolutely. I realized that when I woke up that morning, I got up really, really early and I thought, okay, I can take my power back because I was still getting eye ooze, red, and vaginal discharge and things like my body was just like, don't be here. You're scared, you're terrified, go, leave, flee. And so I took a power walk and listened to the Power of Vulnerabilities TED Talk with Brene Brown, whom I
Mm.
adore, Amy Cuddy's on nonverbal communication, where she tears up and is very vulnerable. And it was like being around these women on this 4:30 in the morning walk and hearing their voices and knowing if they can do it, I can too. And I did some serious mirror work where I gave myself love. I said, I see love in you, I see joy. And I did power positions, doing the Kegel glute squeeze and just really taking back my energy. And then I walked on that red dot and did it.
Mm. You know what's really exciting me so much about this is that for so many people, just the act of public speaking puts them into that state of fear, trauma, fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of those things that you did are now things that people who are experiencing the nervousness about giving a speech could also use for themselves, getting yourself
Mm-hmm.
into a state of power, listening to people who are making you feel empowered and in your own body. I think that's such a key thing. And
Mm.
I'm really lit up by standing in front of people. I haven't done a TED Talk yet.
Yes, I love the
Yet.
yet on there for
Yeah.
sure.
It's definitely on my bucket list in life at some point or another. But you know, the idea of being so grounded and in yourself and in doing so being present makes such a huge difference. Because if you're grounded, you're taking your time, you're breathing, there's that space, then if you forget what you were going to say, it doesn't become stressful. It becomes,
Oh,
let me look at my notes like a normal person would
right.
do as they're
And people love you
talking.
even more. I mean, like even
Yes.
getting that frequency ahead of time, like the dancing was important and being in my body. But in there, I heard of a TED Talk where a woman, not once, not twice, but three times lost her way on her TED Talk. And the organizer brought notes, helped her gain her spot back. And at the end of it, she was the only speaker of the day that got the standing ovation.
Mm,
Guess what that tells us? The audience was cheering her on. We're harder on ourselves. We want to see you succeed. By and large, if you can be the cheerleader to yourself like others are to you, guess what happens? The magic. And like you say, I mean, what is perfect anyway, right? We don't even know what that is. And I feel like the best talks are those that are truly like, if you talk to Brene Brown about that first Power of Vulnerability talk, she even said, like, I didn't expect it to be that viral. And she was just very conversational and just natural, just herself, the storyteller researcher that she is. Amy Cuddy did not expect to tear up and to get emotionally moved by her own experience. Like when she said, I didn't think I deserved to be there, which still hits me because we've all had that moment. And I think it's the allness and the connection and the sense of community that TED Talks and other presentations have the ability to draw people in and near, and they'll hold you dear when you're honest and true and have that vulnerability. And let me tell you, the power's in the vulnerability when you're willing to put yourself out there, to be naked with your stories, your words, your experiences. Like I felt compelled to Kelly. I'm like, I'm comfortable with you. I'm going to share you the rawness. This is the first public, like I've told people, friends and such, but I thought, you know what, this is time for me. It's months later that I can step back and say, I'm going to own my power, like celebrate. I did that. I did the hardest thing, I think, that from a communication standpoint, to put myself into a space that I had not been in 30 years, and to step into that and to stand in my power and to do a talk that's like so renowned and so vital and so important, and ironically about story, and even lightly bringing it up in the talk, um, in a way that I was comfortable with, was in the moment. Like I went in the moment. I do remember that part of the talk. I'm like, oh, it was towards the end of that we are all storytellers and we need to own it,
Mm.
and that there's power in that. And I didn't see myself as a storyteller. I love teaching and coaching, and I had to get with that and say, why am I not labeling myself the very thing I tell my clients to do? So, I mean, I had a client say, Tina, you are a storyteller. You need to own it. And I'm
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, thank you for that gift. Thank you for that gift. And it was because I felt it was this high, lofty thing of a performer, when really we're all natural orators of our own lives.
Mm.
We're born that way. We're born to
Mm.
tell story, and we get all trippy about it has to be a certain way.
I love that. And it leads me to a new question that I'm going to be asking this
Yes,
season on
I
the
love it.
podcast. So, one of my missions is to help women embrace their authentic voice. So, what does it mean to you to embrace your authentic voice?
To be you and to be true. I mean, it really is that simple. I think we make it into something that it's the magic comes from truly trusting our intuition, to see the gifts inside ourselves, to see the moment as it occurs, and to feel it within ourselves. Say, okay, I see you, I see this moment. Now I feel it. Now I'm going to trust. And then the words come out in a way that is meaningful and true. And we do so in a delivery that is full on ourselves. It's not trying to be Oprah Winfrey. It's not trying to be Barack Obama. It's not trying to be Bill Clinton or whomever, right? Whatever that politician is, or that renowned speaker, or Tony Robbins, whomever that may be. It's being you, the youiest you. I'm going to sound very Dr. Seuss. And knowing that, and I think that that's what I enjoy drawing out of people, is them becoming more aware, because I think so many times we are people pleasers by and large. A lot of, I would say, women more so than men in a lot of ways, because we just want to get along. We're rapport builders. I mean, that's what we do. And then we fail to say, oh, does that feel good or icky to me? Is this natural to me? And the more we decision make with our bodies, the more it doesn't lead us astray.
Oh my gosh. That was such a beautiful answer. I love that answer. And I love that you took it to the Dr. Seuss level, because I'm always game for that. Be the
Yay!
youiest you can be. I love
Yes.
that. I just want to give you a few minutes, Tina, to share what you're up to, where people can follow you, how they can connect with you. And of course, I'll have tons of information and ways to find Tina in the show notes.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly. So as noted, I'm Tina B, and you can find me on tinabakehouse.com. That's Tina, Tina, Bakehouse, B as in boy, AKE, and house as in casa.com. So tinabakehouse.com. And on that website, you'll find lovely resources. The blog, I actually, you can sign up for my newsletter, and I give really great insights twice a month or so, as well as it's got some videos, and you can get dun, 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 my book, Discovering Our Magnetic Speaker Within, which I'm very proud of this. I worked with an amazing manuscripts publishing company out of Georgetown University, went through 5 editors and 50 different interviews. It's stories, strategies, and actual application activities to help you draw out your magnetic mind message mechanics. I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me, Tina Bakehouse, as well as Facebook. And a YouTube channel, Magnetic Speaking with Tina B, which I need to liven back up and get going again with some videos. I'm all about, I love connection and support. And even if you just want to have a casual virtual coffee conversation, even just ask a question, because I really get jazzed about talking how human design or your temperament matters in terms of how you show up authentic and true, that you're the wise, loving adult driving the bus in the communication piece, as well as if you want a tip on creating a strong message, whether it's a nice hook, the 5 beats of story, or the mechanics that get you there with your voice and your body.
I love all of that. Oh my gosh. This has been a fantastic start to season 5. I am so appreciative of your time and your beautiful energy. Any last words of wisdom or advice for the listener?
Well, I think ultimately, when we think about being magnetic, there's less thinking and more being. And it's really, really slowing down, take it easy, come from here. And align the here with the gut, and then the mind will follow, and getting out of logic mind, because that's where the push comes to shove. And we all know that that's not where we want to be. So be in your being, stay true to the you that you are.
Perfect. I love that. Well, thank you, Tina. Thank you for being here. Thank you, listener, for tuning in and checking it out. We appreciate you. If there was something in this episode that really sparked your curiosity, if you feel like you know someone who would really benefit from this information, please like, please share, please follow this podcast. And if you could go down and hit a 5-star review and tell us what you love specifically about this episode with Tina, we would appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Tina, for being an amazing guest.
Thank you, Kelly. You're amazing. It's lovely to chat with you today. It went super fast, and we can have our magnesium.
Yes, we can. And we'll be taking our magnesium now so that we can have the best night of sleep ever, because that is how we get ourselves ready to be energized for the next day. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.